got my co-host Kyle. Say what's up.
Let's get this shit going, baby.
We're riding solo. We're riding solo. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's going on, everybody? It's another day on the Day One podcast. I'm your co-host, Anthony. My co-host, Kyle, not here tonight. We're riding it solo. Pause. Yeah, just us tonight. We got a show for you guys. The sports world is heating up, as we all know. But before we get into that, drop a like, subscribe, turn on the post noties. Make sure you are the first person watching 1 second into our videos. Make sure you watch every single short. We all have access to the internet. It can happen. Just tap in. Tap in with the program. Drop a like, subscribe to all that stuff. NFL's heating up. NASCAR's heating up. NBA finals are right around the corner. We are very close to the pinnacle of sports. And it's a never-ending pinnacle. We're always at the pinnacle because one thing ends, something's going. It's a continuous cycle. So tap in. Well, let's just hop right into it, I guess. The NFLPA is making a huge mistake. So today, per Tom Pelissero, the NFLPA is proposing a rule change for the offseason, kind of to revamp the offseason programs. So what they are proposing is getting rid of OTAs entirely. So that, late April to May into beginning of June kind of time period where, voluntary OTAs, some guys come, some guys don't. And then you have rookie minicamp and all that stuff. The NFLPA is proposing to get rid of all of it. Scrap it all. Forget about it. In turn, they want to extend training camp. They want to start it earlier to late June, early July. Now, there's some pros and cons. I think there's more cons than pros. I guess what you could think is a pro could be like, these guys get a longer time to ramp up to game shape. Or, that after the season, April, May, beginning of June, you get to hang out with your family more instead of having to go April, May, June to report for OTAs and then, get that little sliver of time with your family. I guess. But here's the thing. These guys are working around the clock to get ready for the season. As soon as the season's over, they're working out. They're putting in work. They're trying to get better for the upcoming season. So it doesn't matter if you push it here or there. They got to get the work in. It's a nearly year-round job. Sure, they might not be at the facility per se, but, they are working 24/7, 365. I have a problem with it because to me, it's counterintuitive. You think, you're getting all that time in the front end and you just push it in the back end. But where's the science for this change? That doesn't make sense to me, bro. It doesn't make sense. You know, these guys not going through football stuff. Well, what's it gonna look like? It's just gonna be like walkthroughs for the first week, 2 weeks, kind of getting guys back in football shape. What about the guys that play in the Hall of Fame game? We're not gonna have these guys getting reps in April, May, June, and then we bring them back pretty much in July. And then 2 weeks later, or a week and a half later, they have to play in a football game. So they're going from 0 to 100 real quick. And all of these teams are worried about load management, soft tissue injuries, all of these like freak things that happen, when guys are not in proper football shape. This is going to exponentially increase that. I don't know what the NFLPA is cooking, but get them out of the kitchen, bro. I don't know what they're cooking, bro. And here's the thing, too. The CBA is up in 2033, 2034, something like that. Roughly, give or take 10 years from now. The NFL is trying to add an 18th game. This should not be the bargaining chip that the NFLPA is using. It just doesn't make sense. It makes absolutely no sense. It is unbelievably stupid, in my opinion. But I don't know. The NFLPA, they have it all figured out, I guess. We'll see if it actually turns into anything. I hope it doesn't, because that would just mess everything up for the players, I think. Like I said, you're going to have these guys, these soft tissue injuries are going to be happening more and more in training camp. And you're not really going to, not that you're not going to get to, get closer with your guys and build the camaraderie, but like, we're right into training camp. And then for these teams that play in the Hall of Fame game or whatever, it's like, all right, I have not seen a single teammate. The rookies have not worked with a single coach teammate until training camp. And now in a week, I got to go play in a game. Make it make sense, bro. Make it make sense. I don't know what the reasoning is. Spending more time with your family, I guess. It's going to be about the same time. It might be a little less time, because these guys still work out when they're not at the facility. So I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it's that part of it's tough. But I don't know. Whatever the NFLPA is thinking with this, they should just can it. Or at least wait till the CBA is up. I don't know. I wouldn't go through it, because it doesn't make sense for the players. And then, not to mention, the NFL is going to be like, "Oh, you want this 18th game? Oh, you want that 18th game?" They want the 18th game. And who knows if they're going to give a second bye too. Because if they don't give a second bye with an 18th game, that is tough. Think about it, like the Eagles, for example. We have a bye week 5. If we are playing 18 games and our bye week is the beginning of the year, bro, with no second week for a bye, is insane. I don't know, bro. I just think the NFLPA should kind of shelf this one for a little bit. They should just think it through. take a second, let it marinate. I don't think they should just, rush into anything super duper quick. Like a lot of these young men and women of our generation hopping into relationships. Oh, they see something they like. Boom, let's get married. Let's move in together. Think it out, bro. Think about the consequences. Think about it. Think about what these players are going to have to go through. Think about how different the team building experience is going to be. And even the coaches getting like the game plans installed, getting the players ready, getting them in shape. It's going to be different, bro. I don't think it's going to work. I don't. I really don't. I think it's a stupid idea. And the NFLPA should, at least at this point, just put it on the shelf, continue to tweak it and make it, a better idea. Maybe a shorter mini camp or OTA period, but they're not even that short. They're not even that long anyway. It's what, like a month for the two? Month and a half? It's not that long. What are we talking about? It's just dumb. I think the NFLPA should rethink it. Whatever they're cooking in the kitchen, it's getting burnt. It's getting burnt, bro. Oh man. I don't know. If I was there, this wouldn't be a thing. But you know what? If I was in there, the hip drop tackle would also exist because I would say it's bad for football. So I guess that's why I'm not in the NFLPA. But what do I know? But yeah, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the NFLPA proposal change for the offseason? Drop it in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Let's have a dialogue. If there's anything you want to talk about, let me know in the comments. We'll talk about it. But anyway, staying on the NFL, me being a biased Eagles fan, I get my moment in the sun since Kyle's not here to talk a little bit about the Birds. There's a little bit of a narrative going around. And shout out to my two favorite Eagles of all time, LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, the 25-10 show. If you are a diehard Eagles fan like me, it is a must-watch every week. I'm going to preface what I'm about to say by saying this. It's a must-watch every week, and I absolutely love. They're my two favorite Eagles of all time. Two of my favorites. I mean, for crying out loud, I have a Djax jersey somewhere and a Shady McCoy figurine on the PC setup. They were my dogs growing up. Okay. The nostalgia is through the roof. Especially here in the Chip Kelly episode, bro. That was like the biggest closure. But anyway. So let me land my point in saying they discussed, the NFL schedule on their show. Talked about the Eagles going to Brazil. And they liked the game. But they talked about Jalen Hurts having a down year last year. I get it, bro. That 6-game skid at the end of the year was disgusting. And it was bad. Everybody was bad. Jalen was not great sometimes, but sometimes he was the only thing cooking. I have a problem with this narrative. I do. It's a cheap narrative. And I've been saying it for the duration of this program right here. Since we have started this podcast, this has been an issue of mine. The mainstream media likes to run around with this cheap narrative talking about especially for quarterbacks. And I'm not only saying this about Jalen Hurts, but it's just a lot of quarterbacks and where they put blame when things aren't going well for a particular team. Doesn't have to be the Eagles. It could be literally any team in the NFL. Things outside of the quarterback's control, like i.e. coaching, get swept under the rug and put solely on the quarterback. I have a problem with that, and I'll be honest, I do to Dak Prescott. But sometimes it's warranted, all right? Sometimes it's warranted. A lot of the times it's warranted. Especially in the playoffs, it is very warranted. But I digress. A lot of these media heads like to run around saying, it's on the quarterback, blah, 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 whatever. So Shady and D-Jack said, oh, Jalen Hurts had a bad year. He wasn't himself. He got the bag and took his foot off the gas. I'm sorry. Did you see how bad the defense was playing through the last 6-7 weeks of the season? Did you see how predictable the offense was through the entire duration of the season? We abandoned the run multiple times. That's not Jalen Hurts' fault. I've said this so many times. It's not Jalen Hurts. It's not Jalen Hurts' fault. They abandoned the run. Sometimes the execution is Jalen Hurts' fault. Like when he makes the checks at the line of scrimmage, just sending guys on go routes, like A.J. Brown or Quez Watkins in the Seattle game. That's on him. Him not seeing the field and just locking in on a receiver, that's on Jalen. But it's also on the coaches. He had these problems his first year starting, locking in on guys, trying to go for the home run, not taking what the defense gives them. Shane Steichen comes in the cut. I mean, he was there, but he wasn't running the show. Shane Steichen starts running the show. What do we see? Jalen Hurts taking the coaching. He starts taking what the defense gives him. He starts seeing the field better. Last year, Brian Johnson was not doing any of that, bro. He just wasn't. So, is it his fault? A little bit, maybe. But it's all what you put around him. We've been saying it on this show forever. We had this conversation 2 weeks ago about Caleb Williams and Justin Fields. Chicago didn't want to put anything around Justin Fields. But now they put the world and then some around Caleb Williams. You're a product of your environment. The coaches let Jalen Hurts down. They let the whole team down. And then when you switch defensive coordinators, like in week 3/4 of the way through the season, for no reason, that's Jalen Hurts' fault? Is it his fault? No, it's not. I have a problem with that shit. It's the cheap media narrative. And Shady's ass, because he's on FS1 all the time, is starting to drink the Kool-Aid. Bro, put your Eagle glasses on and see it from the player view. The coaches failed Jalen Hurts last year. I can't believe this is still a discussion. We're beating a dead horse. The coaches failed Jalen Hurts. The coaches failed the team. They failed everybody. The players they gave up on the coaching. It was evident. Watch the Tampa Bay game. They didn't give a shit. It's not Jalen Hurts' fault that, the tackling was bad on defense. Couldn't stop a nosebleed. It's also not Jalen Hurts' fault that there's no hot routes and checkdowns installed. I mean, I guess maybe you could make the case that he could go to Brian Johnson and be like, hey, I think we need hot routes. We're getting beat off the blitz so bad, and we don't have an answer for it. Why don't we do this? You could make the case, but at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts is not drawing up the offensive scheme. He's not. I don't know why this is a narrative. Why is it a narrative? Why? FS1, shady. Why? Why do you guys have to do this, bro? Friendly fire. What is this? It's nonsense, bro. It's really, really nonsense. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. So, hey, I got nothing but love for you, Shady. I got nothing but love for you, D-Jacks. Y'all got to straighten up. Open your eyes. Look at the big picture. Y'all were there with Chip Kelly. Y'all knew, oh yeah, like this ain't working. And Chip Kelly was like, I don't give a shit. I'm doing it my way. You lived it. That was the Eagles last year down the stretch. I don't know why it all has to go on Jalen Hurts' shoulders. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. But what I will say about the Eagles, and I really haven't gotten a chance to, talk about this just because we've been so hit or miss, and I apologize that we've just not been consistent. But I'm just so glad that we had so many guys go to voluntary OTAs. So many vets, so many guys out there, trying to get better, build this culture. It was refreshing to see. And especially when you read about guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, CD Lamb, Micah Parsons, all not at voluntary OTAs over contract disputes, over bag issues. Disgruntled men about their monetary status. The Eagles have none of that. We got all our guys paid, happy, working, bro. Working. They're working. It's a good thing to see some of these guys. Very interesting how some of these guys are being used. Like Josh Sweat, for example. His number got switched to 19. Disgusting. Bro lost all of his aura. But turns out that I found this out earlier today. Defensive linemen can only wear, I want to say it's like from 51 to 99 jersey numbers. And linebackers can wear like from 0 to 50 or 1 to 50 or something like that. I don't know. Is Josh Sweat going to be an outside backer? Is that what's going on? If that's the case, I mean, I'm down to see how it works out. He's not really a drop cover guy. But neither was Hassan Reddick. But the 3, 4, and 5 man fronts, if Vic gets in his bag, are going to be insane. They're going to be absolutely insane. So that was an interesting nugget for me. It's kind of seeing how this team's looking. The defense is going to be so interesting to see. Lots of unproven, lots of interesting. The offense is the offense. Nobody's going to be able to stop it. But we'll see how things go. I'm excited to see with the linebackers how everything, plays out there. Devin White has had a pretty good OTAs. Nakobe Dean still rehabbing from the Liz Frank surgery. It's make or break time for Nakobe Dean. It really is. Because in the wings, you got a bunch of guys vying for that spot. Trot. You got Oren Burks. Apparently Zach Bond. Yeah, bro. And apparently the Eagles are interested in bringing in Quan Alexander. So add him to the list if he's here. And who knows? Maybe Zach Cunningham comes back. Add him to the list. So Nakobe Dean's got to lock in. And the interesting part, especially with the defense, is the secondary. No Bradbury at OTAs. We'll see in like 4 days if he's part of the team or not. I really don't. As much as I would like to see him salvage himself, I don't think he's going to be here week 1. I think it's Slay, Quinyon Mitchell on the outside. And the interesting part is everybody else. Because Cooper DeJean could be a guy for the slot. Isaiah Rodgers has impressed in OTAs. He could be the penciled-in starter in the slot. There's also Avonte Maddox, who could move to safety, which he's played safety. It would work. And then just, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown off the injury. And, Cooper DeJean could play back there too. So we'll see. Things are heating up for sure on the football side. But, yeah, that narrative stuff about Jalen Hurts is stupid. It takes the village, and that's what he says. So it was evident by cleaning house, getting in football guys that have half a brain and experience coaching that, we need better coaching is what the front office said. Obviously, having a bunch of inexperienced guys wasn't the move. So let's go the opposite direction. Get a bunch of guys that have been around the block a couple times. We'll see. But yeah, shout out the Birds. Jets are doing some things too. They signed Tariq Cohen. Hopefully he's not a camp body like John Ross will be for us. Oh, man. All right. Let's switch gears. Speaking of gears, let's segue over to NASCAR. Probably the most bombshell news that you could possibly think of happening yesterday. One of the top teams in NASCAR, Stewart-Haas Racing, the team owned by Gene Haas and Tony Stewart, have announced they're closing their doors at the end of the 2024 season. They're shutting down. They are shutting down. Now, let me give you guys a history lesson here. Let me just go back really quick to really where they started. Okay. So, Stewart-Haas Racing was not always Stewart-Haas Racing, but for the last 16 years, it has been Stewart-Haas Racing. So, really quick history lesson. Let's go back to the beginning of Stewart-Haas Racing, Haas CNC Racing. So Gene Haas, who also has an F1 team, April of 2002, they announce we're going cup racing in 2003. So the first season in Winston Cup, in the Cup Series, 2003. And, they really weren't much of a factor, to be honest. They were like the Spire Motorsports of the early 2000s. If you want me to give you a current day comparison, I'd say Spire. I would say maybe Front Row Motorsports like 5 or 6 years ago. Because they're actually pretty nice now. So yeah, they were pretty much at best mid-pack team, probably a little further back than mid-pack. Consistently like 20, 25th, 30th type team. Just, not absolutely sucking, but they weren't lighting the world on fire either. So they exist running, part-time, full-time, some years, depending on sponsorship. And then July of 2008 comes. And one of the most popular drivers on one of the biggest teams, if not the biggest team at the time, it's still kind of one of the biggest teams, from Joe Gibbs Racing, Tony Stewart, announces in a press conference that he and Gene Haas, who owns Haas CNC Racing, are combining to form Stewart Haas Racing. So beginning in 2009, Stewart Haas Racing is a team. Initially, Tony Stewart in the 14 and Ryan Newman in the 39 coming over from Penske. And right off the jump, they had success. Tony Stewart won races. Ryan Newman won races. Brings us to 2011, where Tony Stewart embarks on one of, if not the most historic playoff run in NASCAR history, barely getting in to the chase under the, I want to say, like 2 formats ago, barely squeaking in on points and going on an absolute tear, winning 5 of the 10 chase races en route to win the championship in a tiebreaker to Carl Edwards. In a tiebreaker. It doesn't get much better than that. That really put Stewart Haas on the map, if they weren't already. Fast forward a couple years, they signed Kevin Harvick over from Richard Childress. Things not going well, which Kevin Harvick filled in for Dale Sr. when he passed. And 2014 comes around, that 4-car lights out. They win the championship. And Stewart Haas turns into a juggernaut. At the peak, they were one of the, if not the tippity top teams in the sport. They also signed Kurt Busch. Their thing was more, veteran, experienced type of racers. They had Clint Boyer down the stretch, Eric Almirola till he retired last year. And then started to see these guys leave, decline, whatever you may be. And ultimately, as it's been speculated for months about the lack of enthusiasm about the team, they are folding. They are selling, closing at the end of the 2024 season. So unexpectedly. Maybe not completely unexpectedly, but just bombshell. All of the drivers and employees found out the same time that I did. It was kind of crazy. This is a big loss and a sad day for NASCAR. Like I said, one of the top teams in the sport is literally closing its doors. This would be like, and I to be honest, I've tried to think about a good comp in the NFL. I can't really think of one other than maybe like the Giants' track record over the last 30 years. If, they were like the Jacksonville Jaguars. If they came in relatively sooner, won championships, has been, a top organization, fallen on tough times as of late, just poof, gone. Better comp, honestly, would be like the Toronto Raptors ceasing to exist as an NBA team. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. So, it's tough. It's really tough. Obviously it's been speculated, Gene Haas wants to focus on his F1 team and Tony Stewart wants to focus more on the drag strip, with the NHRA team with Leia Pruitt, his fiance / wife. Sad for sure. It's going to be weird not seeing, Tony Stewart part of a NASCAR team being there, whether owner or driver. It's going to take some getting used to for sure. And, them being a mainstay in the sport as much as they have been over the last 16 years is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So it's definitely a big loss. But you turn to silly season as the interesting part. Now, the charter system for NASCAR essentially is, the points, like the points entries. How do I explain this in simple terms? So it's almost like buying your spot in to the sport and not having to qualify in on time. So like you basically buy your place to start every week. So they have 4 charters and they're selling all 4. Closing up. So what is interesting is, the now bidding war of who is going to get these charters. Now there's one that is officially announced and a bunch of others that are heavily speculated and rumored. So Front Row Motorsports is going to get one of those charters. So they're a 2-car operation. Next year, they're going to be a 3-car operation, which good for them. They were one of those teams like Haas, CNC back in the day. They started from field filler to mid-packer, and now they're not like, they're probably like B tier NASCAR team. They're not A tier, like they're not like Hendrick, Joe Gibbs Racing, those teams, but they're in that conversation. They're like a tier below. So they're getting a charter. So they will be a 3-car operation next year. And what is interesting to see is who's going to be in those charters. Now, their top driver, Michael McDowell, is going to Spire Motorsports next year. So they'll have 2 open rides. So it's going to be interesting to see some of the guys linked there. Josh Berry, who's in the 4-car now, and Riley Herbst, who has run for Front Row Motorsports in the past and also has backing from Monster. So that's a big bargaining chip for Herbst to get a cup ride, although you could argue he's talent-wise not really on the level, but funding always wins out in the end. Okay. If you have money, you're going to get a ride. So that'll be interesting to see. And then some of the other teams that are rumored to be in on the other 3 charters, you have 2311 Racing with Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, those co-owned teams. So it would be Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, and then a third team. Remains to be seen who that person is. And then there is RFK Racing, Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. They would also be a 3-team operation. Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and then a third driver, whoever that may be. Maybe it's Chase Briscoe, who is the flagship driver for Stewart-Haas at the moment. And then, the last one, who knows? Who knows? Could potentially JR Motorsports, Dale Jr.'s team, make a bid at it? Very unlikely. Maybe one of these other teams, like Aspire Motorsports or a Rick Ware Racing, they get one of the charters. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and also the silly season for the drivers, because there will be a lot of movement going on, and also with the crews too. One of the best crew chiefs in the game, Rodney Childers, he's going to be a free agent. So that'll be a big thing to look at, when we get the silly season in the winter, because he will boost a team. He will definitely boost a team. So it'll be interesting to see, where he goes, who he pairs with, who snags him up, because they'll be boosting their program for sure. But just absolutely crazy. And as a Tony Stewart fan myself, it's really sad to see this happen. Because I remember when the Stewart-Haas Racing came to be, not the team before, but Stewart-Haas. I remember when it came to be, and some of my best NASCAR childhood memories were Tony Stewart in the Red 14. So it's going to be weird, not having them in the sport. It's going to take some getting used to. And not only for me, but a lot of NASCAR fans alike. So, yeah, definitely something that I wanted to touch on. That is huge news. And I guess just before we move off of the NASCAR topic, the biggest day in motorsports was kind of a flop. Thanks to Mother Nature, of course. Monaco was pretty boring. F1 to me is pretty boring. I don't really mess with F1 like that. Because usually it's either Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen winning. There's no in between. You turn it on 99.9% of the time. There's one of those two guys winning. Pretty boring. The Indy 500 was a movie. Also, rain delayed for the start by, I want to say, 3 hours, which is big because they usually drop the green at like noon. But 3:30 green flag, and the racing was impeccable. And Kyle Larson, for not having any IndyCar experience, did phenomenal. He led a couple laps. He was actually inside the top 5 with less than 20 to go off pit strategy. He was in second. And, had a mistake on pit road, ended up, I want to say 17th or something like that. But for first time, really good. Really, really good. And that was the big storyline over the last week, is him doing this double duty between the Indy 500 and the Coke 600. And, last week was the All-Star race in North Wilkesboro, which flooded out, believe it or not. Literally, the track flooded, and the next night we had the race. It was crazy. Joey Logano led from flag to flag, except for one lap, which is unheard of. You get a lot of lead changes these days at these tracks. For him to have domination like that was tremendous. Hats off to Joey. Shout out. But the big story was the Coke 600, which was also rain delayed. You know, Kyle Larson wasn't able to make the green flag, so Justin Allgaier took the seat and did pretty good. You know, Xfinity guy who's had some Cup experience in the past. He ran pretty good. Had the car on the side of the top 15. And then the rain came. then the rain came. And Kyle Larson got there just for it to get called. And there was a big blow up because this was late. And obviously, you know, this is the longest race of the year, so it's going to be really long. There's big blow up about the track being dry and NASCAR saying, no, it's not because it's too humid, whatever. And really kind of killed the weekend because, you know, we got the rain delay. Kyle Larson got there, and we kind of missed out the opportunity to see if he was going to get out of the IndyCar, given that he finished 17th and everything that happened. Get out of the IndyCar, get in the Cup car, and have a chance to win. Because he had that, Justin Allgaier had that car towards the front. So Kyle Larson was going to have a shot. And it was only just past halfway. So plenty of time to make up whatever ground he would lose by doing the driver swap and get up to the front. So big storyline missed out there. And some of the other guys with, you know, pit strategy playing out. But Christopher Bell ended up being the leader at the time and took home the checkered flag as the winner of the Coke 600. Mother Nature kind of made it a flop a little bit, but nonetheless, it was a great weekend. Indy 500 was probably the best one of them all. One of the all-time finishes you will ever see. Joseph Newgarden going into turn 3 on the outside to take the lead on the last lap. It does not get more electric and Kobe-esque than that. So he gone back-to-back at the Brickyard, and next year he goes for the three-peat, which no one has ever done, just like the Chiefs are trying to do in the NFL. So big time win there for Joseph Newgarden. But yeah, unfortunately it was a flop. Next year, hopefully it's a movie. You know, it's kind of how these things go. So yeah, and getting out of here, we'll wrap up with the NBA playoffs. Kind of my initial thoughts. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because Kyle's not really here to talk about it, and I know he's got a lot to say in terms of the NBA playoffs and, you know, the potential finals matchup that we could be seeing very soon. Boston swept Indiana 4-0. Sad. I was convinced. I was on the Tyrese Halliburton train. I was like, he's got it. And Boston has just been so shaky. I can totally see them giving them a run for their money and potentially getting to the finals. Didn't work out like that. Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. Didn't see the floor. And Boston swept them. And for all the shaky talk throughout the playoffs, they really did lock in games 3 and 4. I still I'm just worried. You know, you're not getting, like, your best player, Jason Tatum, is not, you know, he's just not him. I just worry about it, especially if they play who I think they're going to play in the next round. I think we all know who they're going to play. The Dallas Mavericks. Now, I am sold on the Dallas Mavericks. I think they are going to win the NBA championship just by how they have been, you know, there's such an evenly matched team with Minnesota. How they've just been able to, you know, get to the fourth quarter and just take control and never look back it's what championship teams are made of. And the role players too playing a big part. You know, Daniel Gafford has been huge. PJ Washington has been absolutely sensational. It's been great. I think Dallas should be the favorite to win. They've shown me more than Boston has, but Boston has talent. So does Dallas. But Boston didn't have Kristaps Porzingis. They'll be getting him back for the finals. It's going to be a crazy matchup. But you know, I like Dallas. Kyle's probably going to like Boston. That's just kind of how these things go. Dallas is up 4-1 though, so they have yet to, get to the finals, but we all know the track record with teams that have started at 3-0. Pretty good. So I feel pretty confident in saying we'll see Dallas and Boston in the finals, which is going to be a great matchup. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, that's really all I got. This has been the Day One podcast. I know, kind of short, a lot shorter than usual. Just me. It's me. It's me. Hopefully next time we get our co-host back with us. But appreciate you, Kyle, wherever you're at. Get back over here, and hey, little teaser. The new overlays coming. Work in progress, so we shall see. But yeah, with that being said, this has been the Day One podcast. Drop a like, subscribe, do all of that fun stuff, whether you're on a boat, bus, plane, spaceship, a 2006 Honda Civic, wherever you're at, whatever you're in, you can catch the Day One podcast content anywhere. So like Kyle says, take your ass to Sprint Mobile Cricket Wireless, get you some Straight Talk minutes, get you a data plan. If you don't have a data plan, get your ass to McDonald's. They have free Wi-Fi. Download all of our content and watch it on your offline library, whatever you got to do. But yeah, lock in. With that being said, I'm Anthony. Kyle's in the ether somewhere. This is the Day One podcast. We'll catch you next time. Peace.